Money. We're going to be talking about how much money you can make as a wedding videographer. A little bit of a background. I started wedding filmmaking when I was 22. I felt like I was a baby. I had no idea what I was doing. I jumped straight in the deep end, full panic mode, but I got the job done. Just for context, I had a full-time job at one of the major 4 banks here in Australia. I had a very secure job. It was paying, I think, around $60,000 a year at the time. It was just something that, if you know me personally, you know that just full-time work at, 9 till 5, Monday to Friday is not my jam. So I literally cold turkey quit that job. I think I had about $20,000 in savings, and I jumped straight into working for another commercial videographer and started my kind of career as a videographer from there. At the time, you could probably see it as being irresponsible. Now, when I look back on it, it's probably the best decision that I ever made. I do, broadcast work with Karting Australia. I've got retainer clients doing commercial work, and then I've got kind of like one-off clients every now and then. And then weddings are about 70% of what I do. So let's break down some of the numbers. Let's go over realistically what it looks like to become a wedding videographer. All right, so looking at my little graph here, 2017, one wedding, $0. This is when I filmed a wedding for a friend, didn't charge a dime, had no idea what I was doing, but kind of dipped my foot in the waters of wedding filmmaking. 2018, I filmed my first wedding that I actually charged for, $500. I was rich. 2019 comes around, we filmed 8 weddings with a total of $17,000 in income. At this point, I actually couldn't believe that I was earning some money off of filming and doing something that I absolutely loved. The average sale of the wedding was $2,150. So that was my first year. I obviously was doing a lot of commercial work on the side, but in terms of weddings, that was my first year where I was like, oh wow, I'm actually getting a little bit of momentum here, but very far off a livable income. Of course, we all know what happened in 2020. I'm not even going to say the word on here because I don't want it to get flagged, but what a bad year that was. Now, if you look at 2021, you can see that the bookings skyrocketed. This was partly because of what happened in 2020, and a lot of those weddings got pushed to the next year. So we averaged out at $3,255 per wedding at 22 weddings, landing in at around $72,000 for the year. This was a big year for me. It shocked me. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, I don't have to do any commercial work. I'm going to go dive into this full time, right? So in 2022, that's kind of like what I did. We averaged at $4,000 per wedding. We did another 22 weddings, and the total income was $88,000. This is when I started to realize, even after taxes, I was making more money than what I was making at the bank as a full-time employee. And in terms of hours of work that I was doing probably 3 times the amount of work as a full-time employee as I was running a wedding filmmaking business. So this is when my antennas went up, and I thought, you know what? If I go full ball with this, if I absolutely throw everything I have at it, this could be a very good career. Then we step into 2023. So 25 weddings at an average of $4,200 per wedding, which brought us into the 6 figures. Now, this for me was actually an emotional year. I couldn't believe that I was able to make sales into the 6 figures. I always had this running joke with my dad that, I've always wanted to make more money than him. I still hadn't made more money than him, but I was on the road to get there. So that was a very exciting year for me. So in 2024, I did 23 weddings at an average of $4,600 per wedding, totaling $105,743. And as you can see, the average price went up slightly, but the amount of weddings went down by 2. Now, this is the same year that I started working commercially for Karting Australia in terms of their broadcasting stuff. It was, I believe, before they went to broadcast, but they wanted someone there at every round, 5 rounds per year, and we'll get more into that as the videos go on. But I increased my commercial work and slightly decreased my weddings, but still earning a little bit more because we increased our pricing. 2025, big year for me. 24 weddings, $5,250 average, coming out at $125,000 worth of sales in the wedding world. What I want you to take away from this is that it took me many years before I broke six figures. And even though I broke six figures, you got to account for expenses and taxes, okay? This isn't what I take home in my pocket. This is the sales that I'm making as a wedding videographer. Some other side income that hasn't been incorporated into this is that I do film for friends on weekends that I haven't booked as a contractor. So it's definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme. My kind of takeaway looking at those numbers is that once we got to say 2021 and we started doing over 20 weddings per year, what ends up happening in the wedding industry is that people recommend people. Once the ball starts rolling, you can't stop it. We're getting out here in the Crocs, getting it done. Milo didn't want to stay in the house, so we're gonna finish this video out here. One thing that people don't consider or don't factor in is the cost of equipment. We bring about $40,000 worth of equipment to a wedding. These are obviously brand new prices. Obviously, if you buy secondhand, you could probably halve that, but it's not cheap. The equipment's not cheap. The servicing of the equipment's not cheap. The insurance, the subscriptions, the software, you got expenses. And that's something that's not accounted for within these numbers. I mean, I told one of my friends, I sent him the graph and he looked at it. He's like, these numbers are lower than I thought it would be. So, it just goes to show, you can show some people, they might think it's, big numbers. You show other people, they might think it's small numbers. Like I said, there's some people that do 40, 50 weddings per year. It depends on what type of person you are, how many weddings really you want to do per year. That's going to kind of determine your workload and how much money you earn in a year. If you're someone that wants to hybrid it and do commercial projects and do weddings, I'm telling you, you probably don't want to do any more than 25 weddings per year. But if you're a hybrid or you do something similar to what I do, let me know, like, how many commercial projects are you taking on? How many weddings are you taking on? And what does that look like for you? I'll be very interested to know.